Well, this week started off with Meta battling an antitrust trial with the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, who argue that Meta monopolizes personal social networking. I think we can all agree that that is true, and that the company should never have been allowed to buy Instagram or WhatsApp. And Jeff, this was a long time ago in terms of these purchases. Maybe people forgot about this, but I think this is a move in the right direction.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a fantastic move. And deeply deserved after the terrible decisions way back in 2012 to buy Instagram, and 2014, or rather to let Meta buy Instagram, Facebook at the time, and 2014 buying WhatsApp. So the people who made those decisions obviously didn't have the knowledge or the sense to understand the impact of those moves. And we're seeing in spades today what that impact has been. So the trial itself will last weeks, but it's pretty exciting that the potential conclusion could be that the FTC forces Meta to divest itself from Instagram and WhatsApp, which I think is entirely appropriate.
You know, it's interesting. I was reading over on CNBC because I was trying to remember how much did Meta, or Facebook at the time, pay for Instagram and WhatsApp. And they bought Instagram for $1 billion, which in today times is a fantastic deal, and WhatsApp for $19 billion. So again, you know, so much has happened in the past couple of years, so people might have forgotten about some of this news. And in fact, it's not the only court action that we're going to talk about in today's show. OpenAI is countersuing Elon Musk, claiming that his bid to buy OpenAI was a total sham, really kind of made up. And they claim that it was made up to discourage other investors.
Yeah, Musk has been harassing OpenAI for a while now, seemingly as a result of personal disagreements he had with Sam Altman when he and Musk were OpenAI co-chairs when the company began. And obviously Musk has a competitive reason to do this too, because he's in direct competition with OpenAI. And, you know, I'm getting really tired of the billionaire bro battles, but I think OpenAI absolutely has a point on this one, especially when Musk's OpenAI bid of $97.375 billion appears to have no basis in fact other than as a comedic reference to Musk's favorite sci-fi series.
It is just really unbelievable that this is the state of tech right now. And I think adding on to this, you know, it's one thing for a tech titan like Elon Musk to be kind of playing games and trying to, go after a company like OpenAI. But it's another thing when he also owns one of the top social media networks, and he can use that platform to spread disinformation and misinformation to discourage investors. I mean, it is totally irresponsible. And I feel, as someone who's been watching Elon Musk like you for years, that he has no clue what he's doing in the sense of being accountable for any of the type of damage like this.
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's more he doesn't care, but let's hope that, that we see a result that will lead us all to believe that deceitful actions by people who don't think the law applies to them will not go unpaid. So I'm looking forward to see them get punished for that, or to see Musk get punished for that rather, and just see, like, the courts need to assert themselves. They're the only sensible part of the, three branches of U.S. government that seems to be working very well at this time. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that that comes to the answer we all hope it does.
It's also worth noting that on CNBC, one of Musk's backers said this, and I'm going to quote exactly what he said on air. The point of the bid, as pitched to him, was not to buy OpenAI's assets, but instead to obtain discovery and get behind the wall at OpenAI. So, in many ways, I think it's very clear that there was no intention to actually buy the company. And let's remember that the company wasn't even for sale at the time, and this was unsolicited. So it's just a giant game for Elon Musk in so many ways, and he doesn't care who he hurts in its wake.
And part of it is, given his behavior, is even using this kind of bullying to unsettle OpenAI employees who, guess what? Nobody wants to work for Elon Musk. So there are a million different ways where he's using his own repulsiveness basically to try to interfere with another company that he's in competition with, and he's able to do this because he owns a social media network and he's got his position in the government with Doge and all that. So, very strange times. Let's hope that these guys get shown that that behavior will not be tolerated forever.
I hope it is a tipping point for bad behavior in tech and they are finally held accountable. And let's stick with AI for a moment because it would seem that an immersive version of The Wizard of Oz has been created for the Las Vegas Sphere using a lot of artificial intelligence enhancement. This seems pretty cool. You have a lot more experience in this area than I do in terms of things like movie making and big shows like this. What do you think of this?
Yeah, having worked at Mainframe Entertainment, the creators of Reboot and stuff like that, when I got out of the grad school, definitely have touched a bunch of this. And besides that, obviously, earlier memories of being absolutely terrified of the Wicked Witch of the West on The Wizard of Oz as a kid. But the problem with a 160,000 square foot semi-spherical screen is that you need extraordinarily high resolution for it, and also potentially different dimensions as well. So AI was used here to help with upscaling to get it to that resolution, that size, but it was also used to extend backgrounds and even digitally recreate existing characters so that the video didn't have to cut back and forth between characters, which you saw in the old film where somebody would be in the room and you knew they were in the room because you saw them before, but then the entire framing would be around a different character. They've actually reintroduced those characters so they don't have to change framing. So some very cool stuff. I'd be pretty excited to see how it all turned out.
It does sound really cool. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about what we know in terms of some of that AI training. But I want to give you props for being able to say 160,000 square foot semi-spherical screen without screwing up at all. So that was actually very impressive, I have to say.
It's a long way from my lispy childhood.
Absolutely. So apparently they even use Warner Brothers archives to help to train the AI, which is super cool.
Yeah,
And you can read a little bit more about this online. But I am with you. I mean, this would be such an incredible show, I think, in so many ways, and a little a blast to the past as well. We're going to
absolutely.
switch over to some science news, and this is one that you found online, and I'm going to just get you probably to run with this. I do want to mention Colossal Biosciences, which is a new company to me. They announced that they have brought back an extinct relative to the gray wolf that averaged about 150 pounds, or double what a gray wolf is in terms of weight. I know
Yeah.
nothing about this, but you seem
Well,
pretty excited.
as any D&D fan out there knows, dire things are basically big versions of them. So these are called dire wolves. And while the science is really cool, it's not necessarily the functional de-extinction that the company claims it to be. Uh, so they extracted DNA from fossils of dire wolves. They compared the DNA they got from those fossils to modern wolves to identify how they're different. And then they took the modern wolf DNA and made 20 different edits to it to better align it with dire wolves. So this edited DNA was then used as the basis for embryos that were implanted into surrogate dogs and yielded a markedly different looking wolf.
It's unbelievable, and I want to get more from you in terms of your opinion. But I also wanted to mention that I looked up on CBC when you talked about them extracting DNA. I was curious, where did that come from exactly? You mentioned the timing, but more specifically, a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old inner bone from a dire wolf skull. This seems pretty unbelievable. What are some of the issues with this?
Well, before we think we're going to be getting saber-toothed tigers again, which is both cool and terrifying at the same time, the issue is that there aren't 20 differences between modern wolf DNA and dire wolf DNA. There are more like 10 million differences. So not 20, but 10 million. So while these pups are definitely different than the modern wolf used to create them, they're certainly not genetically identical to the extinct dire wolf. But all that said, this is a really major accomplishment. Uh, totally cool, moving in the right direction. It just may not be exactly what the headlines say it is and what the layperson may think it is.
Well, that's kind of norm online. You can't really
Yeah.
believe all the headlines. I think that is just good advice, generally speaking. We're going to move from creating real animals with science to creating humanoid robots with screws. This is one of those stories, Jeff, that I am excited to share because people probably don't know a lot about this. We have, of course, talked about robots over the years. And with this specific story, this actually ties even back to the tariff conversation that we're having earlier.
Yeah, it sure will, and we'll get into that in my segment. But it's obviously not surprising that building humanoid robots requires screws. But what may be surprising is that it seems to be there's a specific, most useful type of screw for this application. They're called planetary roller screws, and incredibly, they're so expensive that they account for almost one third of the average humanoid robot's parts costs. And the planetary roller screws are a $1.8 billion market that's expected to grow substantially over the next 5 years because of this.
Just fascinating. And I think it is also a reminder that, like many tech parts, China is really well positioned to dominate in this area because of their history in robotics and drone manufacturing. Hopefully, the West can keep up. Now, speaking of China, Jeff's going to talk to us next in the other Mac about the impact of Trump's China tariffs on Apple and what it means for all of us.